Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Mulder, and tonight, Lady Karen is going to be talking to a gentleman about reagents. And I have to go take care of my granddaughter for about 5 minutes. So I'm going to let her lead the show here for about 5 or 10 minutes, and I'll be right back. Is that okay with you, Lady Karen?
Absolutely, Dr. Moder. Go take
Well,
care of that grandchild.
well, there you go. See, like I said, I'm sorry, but grandchildren come before any show. I apologize, but it's just the way it is. All right, give me about 5 or 10 minutes. I'll be right back.
Oh, right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've got this fantastic gentleman on this show tonight. And I met Dan. We can call you Dan. It's Daniel, but you're known by Dan, right?
Yeah, Dan is fine.
Okay, so Dan Mangum, I met in Atlanta, I think it was 2 years ago. I was at a convention and I met most of these famous people in the convention I went to. But I bought two of his books, and I think you've got a third one that's going to be published soon, correct?
Soon might be a generous term, but yeah, it's in the works.
All righty. So I bought quite a handful of his reagents while I was at the show, and I've made a couple purchases since and made the last purchase only yesterday, I believe. So anyway, so the books that I have, the two that I have, and I want to talk about this one specifically tonight, is the Radionic Reagent Handbook. The other one, I've got it behind me and I can't see it. It's Dark Forces, I believe, isn't it, Dan?
Yes, it's the
So
Dark Forces Handbook.
okay, so the Radionic Reagent Handbook, what I would love for Dan to talk to us about tonight is a little bit about his book. And I was flipping through it, having a cup of tea a little while ago before we got on here. I'm telling you guys, you can purchase this book on Amazon or from Dan's website, which Dr. Moder is going to put all that information up afterwards. It's not an expensive book, but I'm telling you, it is fantastic. It's so much information. It's one of these books that when you pick it up, you don't want to put it down. Uh, it's it gives you the information. You don't have to read 25 chapters to find out in one paragraph what you needed. Everything in here is very significant about everything. So, Dan, I'm going to go over to you and let you tell us a little bit about the Radionic Reagent Handbook, please.
Okay, the reagent handbook, the idea I had behind writing that is that when you take radionic training, the radionic classes that we teach, they're generally 2 days just to get the basics and get you up and running. And there's not time to cover everything. And even when you get into the advanced classes, you still can't cover everything. So this book was designed, and the Dark Forces Handbook as well, some other ideas I have, are designed to kind of fill in the gaps where things aren't covered or aren't covered well enough in classes in my opinion. People kind of want or need more information on these subjects. And the first book I wrote was the Radionic Reagent Handbook. And it starts out by describing what we mean by a reagent.
Yeah, and that's what I was just going to put in there is like a lot of the listeners here may not even heard of a reagent.
Right.
And this is, when I went to the class, and like you said, there's so much to cover. And even though this was a 4-day intensive, you can't cover everything in 4 days. So this sits on my desk. I mean, I've got, ink blots on it. I've got, it's, places where I need to have it tagged to remind me. But so starting on chapter 1, you talk about what a reagent is. Would you like to tell the listeners actually what a reagent is?
Yes. The term reagent is kind of a broad term. In general, it means anything you add to a radionic broadcast to improve the results. It could be a vitamin supplement or a soil amendment. It could be a symbol. It could be a color. It could be a prayer. It could be anything that you want to grab the energetic signature of and add to your broadcast to make it more effective or make it manifest quicker, things like that. So in that sense, that's what a reagent is. It could be anything. It's a very broad term for literally anything you might add. But it also is used sometimes
I was even surprised. I mean, you write in
Did we lose you?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. So one of the things that I was reading in here was very interesting. I've seen people use this before is, put in even a Bible in the well, put in the New Testament. We don't want to put the Old Testament in the well because that could be interesting, right? But put in the New Testament in the well, like one of the little Gideon's Bibles or something. And then all the other things that you put in here of what you could put in. I mean, you can put in sigils. What other things can I'm going through here. So common reagents, like you said, you talked about the vitamins and the supplements. You talked
Yeah,
about
there's
symbols. Yeah.
symbols. There's a million symbols from all sorts of magical religious traditions and cultural traditions. There's prayer. You could print out a specific prayer out of a Bible, or the Bhagavad Gita, or Buddhist books, or
Mhm.
anything like that. The number of things that could be used as a reagent is basically limitless. It's literally anything that you might want to grab the energy from. It's anything, like colors, sounds, like I said, musical tones, musical notes, songs.
Yeah. And
It's
Dan,
it's endless.
one of the things I noticed was when I was testing to see, oh, what symbols could I use? And I was brought up Church of England, being from England, Episcopalian, and things that like the Star of David came up for me. And it's not particularly, it doesn't have to be the religion that you believe in or you practice, or even if you don't practice the religion, like Dan was saying,
No, it doesn't.
it's the energy of that symbol, what that symbol brings to you, whether it's the tree of life or the arm. This is just, like I say, it was so easy to read and understand, Dan, because there's so many books out there that you can take to bed to fall asleep on because that's all they're good for. But in this book, and I know I'm pumping it up because it is fantastic, folks. And if you don't have it, you should buy it. He explains everything. So if we go on to even like having the pentacle or a circle or a pentagram, the ankh, I mean, this, I never thought beforehand of using symbols in radionics.
Yeah, and then sigils is just there's just a certain type of symbol. Typically you think of angelic sigils, but there's some other ones too. They can be drawn a million different ways. The Malcolm Ray cards, from the Malcolm Ray radionics instruments, those are symbols. Those are all symbols, or sigils. You could call them sigils too. Yeah, the sky's the limit. There's so many you couldn't even list them all.
So some of the things that I was interested in was the ancient alphabets that you explained about. Sacred geometry. Now that's a big one. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, sacred geometry. Again, we're into the realm of symbols, like the seed of life, the fruit of life, the tree of life, the flower of life, the phi spiral. You know, the pentagram, the five-pointed star.
Mhm.
That's huge in sacred geometry, all the ratios and proportions in there. And that's what sacred geometry is. Sacred geometry is about relationships, ratios, and proportions. It's not about specific numbers per se. The numbers that they use reflect ratios, reflect proportions. It's like that. So it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what kind of, if you're using cubits or inches or centimeters or whatever, that's irrelevant because it's all about the ratio. It's not about the number itself.
Yeah, wasn't
And
there a
that can,
gentleman called Slim Spurrin? I've read some of his book, and I've actually there's Brian Besco, is that his name? Twisted
yes.
Sage. Yes,
Mhm.
that's a lot of sacred geometry that's put into the copper that he uses, right?
Yes. Yeah, he is. There's a lot of sacred geometry in there. I know Brian. He's a good guy.
Super. And I bought some things from him as well, and I've talked to him a few times. I'd like to get him on the show. So Dan, can you explain how you could use like some of his products that he sells, the coils or spheres, how that could help a radionics operation?
The tensor rings are the easiest and simplest way. You just I used Hieronymus style instruments, and they have wells. They don't have plates like the base 10 instruments do, which a lot of
Yeah.
listeners, I'm guessing, are going to be more familiar with. But you could do it the same way. You could get a tensor ring big enough to go around your input plates, or you could get a big one that like your whole instrument could sit in. But that energy inside the ring will enhance the broadcast. It will it will make the broadcast happen in a shorter time. You'll need a less time to broadcast. At the shorter broadcast time, it'll make it more powerful.
Yeah,
It's a lot of radionic practitioners in where I come from, you know, everybody has tensor rings around their wells.
yeah,
or
I've
around
actually got two around one, and then I've got one of the big spheres sitting on the oh gosh, my brain's gone here today. Sitting on the rub pad, you know, plate. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
I forget what he calls those.
Stick
He
plate.
calls it a tensor field generator. It's also a Janissa crystal. It's just tensor rings interlinked together into a Janissa crystal. It's just like a sphere. Yeah, you can set that on the rub plate or on your antenna or on your plates. You could set it there. I set one. I have a bigger cabineted instrument from Kelly Research, and I have one on the top of the instrument up top,
Mm.
and that
Yeah.
makes a big difference just having it sitting there.
And with Dr. Mulder's instruments that he makes, you could get a big enough tensor ring that you could actually sit the whole instrument in, the whole
Right. Yeah.
device in there.
Right.
And then the
He makes them
power,
pretty big.
yeah. He actually
Yeah.
has one that I can actually use. I bought the big circle one that I can stand in, and then I can kind of bring it up onto the top of my body and down, and it
Mhm.
helps repolarize you and correct
Yes.
polarization and everything. So that's another interesting one. We do need to get him on the call at some stage. So
Hello.
when I went on to chapter 10, I looked at color and
We lost you again.
light, and that was very interesting because I do have all of. Oh, did you lose me again?
Yeah,
Hi,
you
Dan.
cut out again. You right when you started to talk about color and light.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So, like I said, in chapter 10, you have a whole chapter on color and light, and I did buy all of your color reagents. And it's amazing when I test to use them, how many I use, and I use them in multiples as well. So can you explain a little bit about how the color and how the light works?
Well, color and light is just vibration, and you know, I mean, there's color therapy. You know, Dinshaw color therapy is, you know, probably the one I'm most familiar with. You know, colors have energy. They have properties. They influence things. So just grabbing a hold of that energy and using it, you know, colors are a very common reagent in radionics. A lot of people use them. And it just seemed like a no-brainer because to me, the colors are like musical notes. It's like the universal reagent. You know, you'll always be able to find a color that'll work. You'll always be able to find a musical note that'll work for whatever you're doing. Other types of things, you may have to sort through symbols, to find one that's appropriate for your specific instance you're working on at that moment. And there's a million things, but and a lot of prayers may not be right. A lot of supplements might not be right for what you're doing, but it's easy to get a color. There'll always be colors. So
yeah, and reading through your book as well, which I thought was great, and I've actually used the photocopy machine to copy some. In the back, you've got symbols and you've got sigils and you've got all these things, and then also you can you sell the color reagents, or you can just take a color and put that color on a piece of paper and add that paper to the well if that's all you've got, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's amazing. We don't really want to get into homeopathy tonight because I think that would take a whole call in itself.
That's a whole subject in and of itself.
It's a whole subject in itself. One of the things I did laugh at was the crop circles. So of course, coming from England, I remember the crop circles back in the 80s, and it was amazing. They just appeared overnight. Now, some of them, I believe, probably were put there by the aliens or who knows what, but it wasn't until probably 10 years ago that there were two gentlemen, I think from Wiltshire, that actually admitted that they had been doing quite a few of those crop circles. But
yeah, there are some faked, but if you look at the pictures, some of them are way too complicated and way too fine, and there's no way into the field and things like that. You have to look at them.
And there's no way that these guys, after they've been to the pub and had a couple of beers, there's no way those guys could have done some of those circles because it just it wasn't possible for them to do.
Too intricate. There's no path in or out. Yeah, they're too symmetrical. There's tons of these things are not faked. They're a real phenomenon. I'm not sure what they are, but they're not. Something's making them.
Okay, so
Other
Dan,
than drunk guys from the pub.
yeah, exactly.
And they do have energy. They do have energy. They make you can use them. You can just print out a crop circle, like I said, and I have some examples in there. And that's why the examples are in the back of the book. Just so if, I mean, you can find stuff on the internet easy enough, but you can take that book and just photocopy those pages and get those symbols out of there and use them. That's the reason I have them in the back like that.
Yeah, and that's what I did. I photocopied them and then I have them. And usually if I'm testing to what I want to use, I put them face down so that I don't see. I use my pendulum and I put my hand on. It's like, do I need this one? And then when I get a yes, I'll turn it over and like, oh, right, this is the one I'm going to use today. You know, this is what I need for this particular
You cut out
operation.
again.
So, but tell us a little bit about your website. Oh, did I cut out again? Yeah,
Yeah.
we're having trouble with me, Dan, with my computer or my internet here, and we're trying to figure out, you know, how to make things work a little bit better. But
Oh,
so if we
do you
go to
two hear me?
your
Do you hear
yeah,
me?
we can hear you.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
I can hear you.
Fantastic. Okay, fantastic. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. Please carry on. I just want to make sure I was back online here.
Yeah, I've been cutting out some, but we're figure this out eventually anyway, Dr. Motor. So I was just asking Dan, we've you know talked about his reagents. I'd like him to explain a little bit about, well, first of all, the name of your website, and then when somebody goes to your website, what offerings do you have on your website?
The website is harmonicenergyworks.com. And there's a whole bunch of tabs right at the top. I have the reagents and programs. I have an antenna, a radionic accessory antenna rub plate that I designed and I sell. I've got resources, a couple resource tab. There's another one for rates and worksheets. There's I've got a listing of the classes I'm teaching, like in-person things I'm teaching or the online classes I've got. I've got a link to a friend of mine who also makes reagents programs. Her name is Sue Keller.
Oh, she's fantastic. Yeah.
I've got a tab of other like classes and radionic events that other people or organizations are putting on. I put them there so people can see them and get the information about them.
So can you explain to the listener what your reagents look like? I mean, what are they made of and how do you use them?
Okay, my reagents, and I use the term reagent and program interchangeably. Because technically, what they are is they're like what Pete Radati would in his books call stored rates. They're a group of rates, a multitude of rates and symbols and other things potentized into a substrate. And for a long time, people were using crushed crystals and sand in glass test tubes, and I used to use that, but I've moved to a different medium now. I now potentize mine into little mini CDs. They're a business card CD. They look kind of like a hockey rink. They're a little 3-inch circle, but they're cut off on the top and the bottom, so they fit. You can fit them right inside the potentizing well of the instruments I use, but you could lay them flat on a plate. And
Okay.
I just the business card CD. It's got multiple layers of material. There's metal in there, including a small amount of silver. It's a good medium to hold the energy, and it's a lot more durable than test tubes are fragile. They're much more easy to put in the mail. You can stack them, you know, on a plate, on your output plate or in a well easier. You can put more into a well. They're just better all around than the old test tubes were.
Yeah, I really like them, Dan. And if you drop them, they don't break. And then they're
Right.
kept in little plastic little covers so that you keep the dust off, they don't get scratched. And I have a
Right.
little art box with drawers, and I lay them flat in the art box, which worked out really good because they fit in there nicely. And then when I'm dowsing to see which one I need to use, there again, I just open the drawer and ask, is it anything in this drawer that I need? Is it in this line? Is it this one? And go through them. But what kind of, okay, so let's go through, because the listeners don't understand how many you have. And I didn't count, I meant to count them up before we got on the call to see how many reagents you actually have. Do you know off the top of your head how many you have?
I don't know the exact number. It's somewhere in the neighborhood, I think between 40 and 50,
Yeah, it's quite a few.
somewhere in there, I think.
So which is your best seller? Which one do you sell the most of?
Oh, it kind of changes over time. Let's see. The chemtrail Morgellons was very popular, but now so many people bought it. It's, you know, that's kind of,
Yeah.
that was the first one I ever made.
Oh, really?
And I have one called All Times. This is very popular.
Okay, how does that one work?
It causes the broadcast to occur at any and all appropriate points in time. So it makes it more effective.
Good. And I think, you know, when you get further into radionics and you're doing more complicated operations, or you have quite a few running at the same time, to have something like that really helps. And I think I have 3 of those and I use them. Yes.
Yeah, I get a lot of feedback over those. People really like that one. That's part of a group of reagents and programs I have called the meta radionics, because those programs and reagents are designed to affect the radionic process itself. They're not affecting the subject of the broadcast. They're affecting the radionic process. So that's why I call it meta radionics.
Absolutely. And then, you know, if you go through, you've got all the colors, you've got the musical notes, you've got some for dogs, some for cats.
Yeah, the canine health balancer has become a very popular one. I got a lot of good feedback on that.
Yeah, I've got it and I use it. In fact, that's what I'm going to be using in my up and coming business that I'm going to be releasing soon, because that has worked really well. And I love that reagent. And like I say, Sue Keller, she has her set of reagents. They're different in that they are in a test tube. So you have to be careful when you're handling them because you don't want to drop them. But what's so neat about hers is she puts brightly colored sands in them. So it's easier to
Yes.
see, you know, what you're looking for with the color codes. Yeah.
And she uses different colored sands for specific reasons. They're not just for decorations. The colors mean things for what she's doing. And yeah, they're very well done.
So I was going to ask Dr. Moder, you still with us?
Well, of course, I'm listening to every word as of about 10 minutes ago.
Have you got your camera working right now that you could pull up the wishing box so that Dan could take a look and we could explain how the reagents could be used on it?
I looked at it. I looked at the website. I saw pictures of it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, like I said, I'm sort of a purist when it comes to this stuff. I mean, or either that or just simplicity. That's what I look for, simplicity. A lot of the things that you guys were talking about, I could easily make attachments that could go into the input of a machine. For example, making an external plate where you can set a witness sample on it, whatever it may be, a reagent. It doesn't make any difference. Another thing too that fascinates me, I have one of the original machines. I think this was the same identical model that Hieronymus used when he first started investigating radionics. It's a MagnaWave written or made by, I think it's Casebro was the name of the company, around 1924. And that one also has basically a light or colored light system. It's like these old Christmas tree lights is what it looked like. And you would dial in for a certain color, to project toward the quote unquote witness sample that you were using, for a patient. Because that's what they're using these things for. Back in the old days was, I think chiropractors were using them, that kind of thing. But yeah, I find it very fascinating. And, I've even made machines where basically I just had a color chart that you would dial into a certain color to influence an operation. And you're right about this stuff. And it makes me, people don't realize everything has a frequency to it. And you're able to, put these things together. I mean, heck, I can make well, like a reagents. It's real simple to project the energy of a reagent toward a target using these machines. Basically all I do is have a sample of the reagent along with the target, put that on the input plate, tune the machine to project that energy toward that target. After I tune everything, I simply take the thing that represents the target only, put that on the output plate or the stick plate, and leave the reagent on the copper input plate. And that's all you got to do. It's that simple. These operations take less than a minute to do.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
it is a really simple process. And you could, these, I like these that I have because they go into the wells that I have, but they could just as easily lay flat on an input plate, and you could stack them on together. You could use multiple programs at the same time. You could just stack them.
Yeah.
Exactly, Dan, because sorry to cut you off, Dr. Moder, but I'm good at that, right?
No, I'm used to it.
Yeah,
Go
you're
ahead.
used to it, right? So one of the good things about it is, Dan, is I've got a couple or more of Dr. Mulder's devices, and if I try to put the test tubes on them, I can't stand them up because they fall down. And if I lie them down, they're likely, if something moves, to roll off. So I'm always worried, like, oh, I'm going to lose a test tube. Okay.
Correct.
But with your reagents, I can stack them high. You know,
Mhm.
I've put 4
Yep.
or 5 at one time on, and then I've dowsed to see the time of something. And then of course I've put your old times or anything else on there so that I'm not overcooking the operation that I'm
Yeah.
doing. Okay. Says the woman that can't cook or even boil an egg, right? So yeah, I think they're great for that. Dr. Moda, did you get your camera up or not?
Yeah, so my camera is up. I mean, hang on a second here. This is my Apex machine. Let me see how this thing translates.
Because what I'd like to do, Dan, is on our next show, when I get my camera organized, is to get your reagents out and then maybe get you back on, and then we can explain, you know, how to use them and show how that they go on the device. And all right, we got a picture up here. Good.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Yeah, again, what I was talking about, say, for example, this is your reagent, okay? This is your target. And let's see here. And basically, you tune the machine to transmit that energy, and you take the target only, and you put that right there. That's just as simple. And you leave the reagent on the input plate. Again, a simple operation. Uh, see here. Oh, it's telling us we only have 16% more time left in this Zoom
Okay.
call.
So quickly on this device, this Apex device, which you're making one specially for me because you love me so much, right?
Yeah,
But
well, I owe you a
it's an
favor.
it's an organ. This one's an orgon generator, correct? That's different than the other
That
devices you have.
Yes, yes. This one I built exclusively with a good friend of mine, Joshua P. Warren, and he and I co-designed this thing, or collaborated and created this particular um, device. Again, it has a sigil, if you want to call that, of a Megatron right there, orgone generator, and a what do you call it? It's a double-sided diamond. Wait, it's here. It begins with an H. Of course, I forget right on the air.
It's Heron Diamond or
Yes,
something. Yeah.
yeah, something like that. Anyway, and these all seem to, they work together, and and enhance the operation. But what all the stuff, what I love about this is, we're all working on the same stuff. We have different ideas about how to approach it, and different ways of doing it. And I just find it fascinating that what you're up to, Dan, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me on and asking me about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely want to have Dan back because we really didn't cover much. I mean, we're just trying to uh, let people know about Dan. And then, of course, that there are so many different devices out there, so many different instruments out there. And, you know, it's everybody has a different preference. And if you're like me, I've got more than one.
Yeah.
I've got like the potato chip thing, can't have just but one, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm looking at the clock here. We have about 7.5 minutes. I didn't realize this. This is the first time I've ever put together a Zoom meeting, like this. Bringing a bunch of people together and having a conversation and recording it. And so so far so good. I am not going to, I don't want to mess things up here, but no, really, and I like the things that you're doing there. And again, it doesn't interfere with different belief systems. I mean, you're not stepping on anybody's toes and that kind of a thing. And what I like about it is you're providing uh, things that represent the energies for everyday situations, things that people really care about, and that's just awesome stuff. It truly is.
Yeah, I'm just trying to provide something that people could use and get it out there for people, because a lot of people get intimidated when they first learn it because there's a lot of information. And if you have these reagents and programs, they're pre-made, so you can just put it in your instrument and then just start having results right now, while you're
Exactly.
learning and getting better. And they'll work on anything. I mean, you could put them on yours, you could put them on an SE5, you could put them in
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, exactly. And and another thing too, a little simple thing, since you're into the the wells, with these devices, all you have to do is get a Pyrex jar or a beaker, excuse me, beaker off of Amazon, and then take. I would have like an external plate that you would sit that beaker on top of, and you can put all your reagents inside that beaker or whatever the heck it is that you're using for a particular operation. I mean, it's doing the same identical task as as what the other devices are doing. But the point of this is they're all doing the same things. They just got different ways of doing it. That's it.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
it's
use
it's
the
like beta and
uh-huh.
VHS.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. The end result is always the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, it's kind of like I use the beaker on the ones that you made for me, Brad, because like I say, the glass reagents just keep rolling. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what the old timers were doing and that kind of stuff. And you know, and again, I try to keep things as simple as possible. And the thing is, honestly, uh, these devices that they make, I mean, they're fantastic machines. They use high quality parts, and they're in a great looking cabinet, and I mean, just fantastic. I mean, they're just really awesome machines. But the thing that I noticed here is that there's a certain demographic that's willing to shell out thousands of dollars for a radionics device. If they can pick up another device for a few $100s, they're willing to take that risk. And that's really where my demographic was. I was going for the average person who's getting into radionics and is, they're willing to take a risk, but they're not willing to take, the
Mhm.
risk the size of a down payment on a car. You
Well, and
know,
the thing that I love about Dan's reagents is they're very affordable. I
beautiful.
mean, they're between $40 and $60, and you there's other reagents out there and they're great, but some of these reagents are $800-900 or even over $1,000, and that to some people is just not, they're not able to do. So this is a
Exactly.
way to get into doing radionics with something affordable, go into like Dan's website and thinking, okay. And then Dan is wonderful. I mean,
Yeah.
I call him and he talks to me. He answers questions. I'm not saying everybody should call him up tonight and his phone blow off the hook, but I mean, any questions I've had, I've called Dan, and he's been able to answer. I mean, he's seriously, guys, this I'm only bringing people on here that I care for. I don't know
Yeah.
why Dr. Motor's on the show, but
Yeah,
there
I
you
don't
go.
either. Heck, I
But
can't figure that
but
either.
before
But
but before we close, Dan, is there anything else you'd like to say? We definitely would love to get you back on here, and we'd love to talk about your other book and then get a little further into actually how to make a reagent. Is there anything else you would like to say before Zoom cuts us off, right?
yes.
I was just going to say the book, the reagent handbook, it talks about what reagents are and how to use them. It gives a bunch of examples of things you could use for reagents, and it explains things about the symbols, a little bit about each of the symbols, a little bit about the languages. It's not just putting a list in there. It's just talking about these different things and how and why you might want to use them and things to think about. And just as a primer, maybe the Dark Forces handbook is the same thing. It was designed to fill a gap. It's not taught a lot in classes about dealing with dark forces. It's a subject that comes up, and I'm not someone who is big on the fear, and you need to live in fear of this and be afraid, and it's all this and all of this.
Mhm.
But that book talks about the different kinds of things we talk about with dark forces, and most of what the book talks about is not, black magic and demons and things like that. There is a section there that is covered, but a lot of it is other things. A lot of it is stuff you bring upon yourself. We do to ourselves. It's just little things, but it talks about the nature of what they are and how you can deal with them and gives you ideas to work with it.
Yeah, there's even a
And that's
chapter I
the
think
idea behind these
yeah,
books is to give you ideas. It's not just telling you what to do. It gives you a little bit of background information.
yeah, I mean the information on ghosts or entities or spirits that can be around you,
Right.
and how to, like Pete Rodante's is it ROSP, ROSP?
ROSP. Yeah.
Yes. And how to use that to kind of clear out the entities and things like that you could be attracting and could be draining energy from you. So yeah, we're definitely going to get you signed up again for this, Dan. And we ask all of our followers here, like our page. If you have any comments, hopefully positive ones. Please post them. If you have any questions for Dr. Moder, myself, or for Dan, put them in the comments. We do have comments on Zoom, don't we, Dr. Moder?
Yes, we not Zoom. This is going to be on YouTube.
It will go on YouTube, so it won't
Yeah.
go through the Zoom, but on the Zoom. Yeah, but what I mean is that not on what yeah, get this right. What I mean is the Zoom, pasting the Zoom on YouTube, it's going to be the same as it was with the other platform we were using, right?
Yes, everything's identical. All this is going to be the latest video on the channel. But yeah, I think this is fantastic, Dan. And like, from what you're describing to me, this, even for the people out there that have my machines, your reagents can be easily incorporated with this, easily
Yes, they
tuned.
can.
I mean, just there's nothing to it. I mean, that's what I love about this, because there is a sharp, there can be a large learning curve on a lot of things when it comes to radionics. And like you, I try to take the philosophy of keeping it as customer friendly and as simple as possible. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, been a fantastic show. And once again, Lady Karen has proven her vast talents in the wonderful world of broadcasting. All right. I'll talk to you later.